so much, Dr. Pasano. We are learning and unlearning. So, with all those ideas brewing, my name is Natalia Mulebatsi, and it gives me great honor and privilege, drum roll, to introduce the sisters that I'm about to introduce. We create our own legends. We have this knowledge, we have these people who are writing about these things, and if we don't listen to them, if we don't have conversations with them and ask them questions, then their knowledge stays, like as they say, stay in your place, like when they put you in your place. You all know about that. So we don't want to be in any place, because any space and every place is for all of us to claim. And these ideas are ours to claim, to interrogate, to dismantle, So, as I have said that, I am going now to believe that my technology is going to believe in me just as I believe in it. We have speakers who are living African feminism in different spaces. Different ideas are going to be shared here, and I just want to invite them. First of all, please give them a round of love. Do you even know who I'm about to welcome? We give them a round of applause after we've welcomed them. You see, when you're the MC, you can just ask people. I can ask you to stand up right now. I know you will stand up. I'm joking. Right now, Malebo Sephodi is just trending. Go social media, because she's just written this book called Misbehave. Let me see by show of hands, and no wrong or right, I'm not shaming anybody. Who has got this book? Okay. And can you show the book up so that the people, it's in your bookstores, and I urge you to get yourself a copy. And if you already have a copy, get more copies as gifts, because we give all sorts of things, chocolates and perfume, and we're like, no, I already have a copy. You can buy another one and give to your friends from the US and your friends in Brazil. Give them so that they can also. This is how knowledge travels. This is how our ideas travel. When you go to Barcelona and all those places, put a few copies in your bag, because you don't know who you're going to meet, and say, I offer you, here is, some African ideas. Let me, ideas from where I come from. Share these treasures with the world. And having said that, I have introduced her. Please welcome Malebo Sephodi to she's also a motivational speaker, etc. Because now this technology is not working with me. I need to be reading her bio, which is, but yeah, ask Malebo. King blog elegant. Kichomiaka, by the way, just saying. What's that website? Ask. Malebo says, Askis, and she's my friend. Malebo says, you will get to know what we are talking about. Powerhouse. Powerhouse. And then up next is Dr. Nokuthula Hlabangoane. She's going to, she writes, and she's going to share with us a conceptual clarity as a decolonial act. The black woman does not exist. And I want to just share with you, born and raised in the dusty streets of Soweto, a child very much raised by the village. And why I say that is because her scholarship is informed by that. She received her PhD from Wits, Halala PhD, in 2012. Her scholarship has been informed by a need for radical redress, one that eschews easy positioning and is thus likely to go against the grain. She firmly believes that decolonization is not a metaphor that stands for and instead of. So, that way I have introduced her. Ooh, I've fallen from my grace. I'm back. Please join us. And I am also going to introduce Zandi Radebe, who's going to be addressing us on Azanian women as liberators, the case of Mama Zondeni Sobukwe, who's the widow of Robert Sobukwe. And when I first heard this sister speak, strong Pan-African ideas like that, I was like, what a powerhouse. You know, just from an anthropological, political theory side, I was like, yo, I am learning and unlearning, and she doesn't want to be exposed. She will expose herself. Please welcome her as she joins us. And I will also welcome Dikeledi Mokoena, who's going to be addressing us, learning from Black African woman, a decolonial approach. And Dikeledi is a Black woman worker who is oppressed. She teaches African feminist and gender studies at TMALI, and also teaches political economy at the University of Pretoria. We're entering these spaces, and please welcome her as she sits there. I tell you, and just join. On a very serious note, I'd like us to give each of them, starting with Malebo. She's going to tell us, you know, her process and how on writing Misbehave, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading, and I'm looking forward to passing it on to our young ones who are still coming up, because this is reference work. We need to have reference. You know how when you cite work, and a lot of times it's people that you don't know, like people who are not, we need to change that. And these women sitting here are proof of us changing that. So they are going to address us. I will give you not more than 10 minutes.
No, I want to plead for
20.
Justice for the speakers.
Okay.
I have taken almost half of the program.
Okay.
With preliminaries. And for that reason, can I plead for justice?
Okay. Justice is granted. Justice is granted. I'm not going to say I'm going to give you how much time. I apologize for saying that before I get into trouble. Malebo, I will start with you, and we will move on like that, and then we hope to engage with you. See, people who speak for themselves.
Good evening, everybody. Is it evening already? Good afternoonish, good evening. All protocol observed. It's always beautiful to be in a room filled with doctorates and PhDs. Okay, it's the same thing, right? Professorships, and very, very powerful room. So I honor everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight to TMALI. Thank you for trusting my voice and having me here to talk about a very exciting conversation. That's something that's very close to my heart. And now I'm very glad that in the introduction, the speaking, lots of foundation was layered, so I don't have to do the work of definitions and very difficult terms. I can just go into my work, and the pace that's already been set sets a context for the work that I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'm doing a very experimental presentation where I'll be reading from the work that I've prepared, the speech that I've prepared, and I'll be reading from my work, from my book, Misbehave. I'm a published author, y'all. And if you don't own it, I'm going to own it, because, you know, being a black woman in South Africa, your voice sometimes gets squashed, and to be able to be given a platform is really a feat. So if you go on social media, I don't know what the hashtag is. I love trending. I love that, because, you know, when the conversations trend, then people want to know what it's about. So I don't know what the hashtag is. Hashtag Decolonial Feminism, and I'm on Twitter at Malebo Sephodi. So when you tweet about me and I retweet, people's like, hey, and then they go buy the book, and then I become a bestseller, you see. So my title for tonight is Writing Misbehave. Given the short amount of time we were given to prepare, I've not been able to fully expand on all that I would have liked to, but I tried to scratch the surface of where my interests lead my intellectual work in the entire conversation on decolonial feminism in Africa. I'm interested in how we write about ourselves and how those texts reach us. I will briefly discuss what has informed the journey towards writing Misbehave, which is my debut nonfiction book of experimental writing released in May 2017. I'm not necessarily going to talk about the book and the contents, but the reasons why I wrote in the way I did it. Misbehave is written in what I would call experimental, accessible texts that locates theories such as feminism and constructivism within lived experiences. The writing is conversational, and begs for the reader to self-reflect on their own journeys. Before I go any further, it is important to note that the book would have not been possible without the works of many black women on this continent, those who have died and those who continue to breathe, those who have written and those who silently live their lives. In some instances, I had to invoke the spirits of black women on this continent who I've never met. In writing this text, I realized how these women have saved me throughout my life, grappling with my own feminism, especially within the context of decoloniality. Coming from a corporate background that set out hierarchical structures for science, joining the social sciences exposed me to a different way of understanding and seeing my environment and the world. Even with this enlightenment, there was still a dissonance in how I read my discipline, which is international relations, and how black women were written in this discipline. The positivist idea that we should distance ourselves from subjects and write from an authoritative pen troubled me. The modern state, as it stands, is seen as the Western state. Gender is a fairly new topic in the study of international relations, which I will refer to as IR. Begrudgingly so. And whether it is necessary or not, it has been a subject of debate for many scholars. IR is known for theorizing the world, and it is quite concerning that it has only recently made place for feminist theory in its discipline, and it is still an area of contention as theories such as realism and liberalism are hugely paternalistic and focus on the state as a man. Even within this feminist theory, there are loopholes. This led me to wonder about my purpose as a black scholar within this discipline. I'm not only invested in the episteme, that is the knowledge production that this world offers me, but as an activist, I'm interested in how the work done in academia intersects with societal experiences and how accessible it is for the community. Writers such as Sisonke Msimang, Pumla Dinaugola, Barbara Boswell, Mohale Mashiko, Simdele Dosekun, Ponce Pilane, Panashe Chigumati, Glory Katwiri have addressed this both in theory and practice. In international relations, feminist theory is framed from a very Western white lens. I'll say it again. that often seeks to speak on behalf and save women from the developing world, i.e. us. Writers who engage in decolonial feminist work engage from a very Latin lens, which still I can't locate myself. It is important, and there could be plurality, but there is limited work that reflects the experiences of Black feminists on this continent, particularly when writing about the Black woman experience. One has to borrow from other subjects, and one cannot readily name the African women scholars that write within the discipline. Not that they are not there, but that they are erased. International relations continues to refuse to highlight this. J.N. Tickner, who has become a leading feminist voice within the discipline, writes that the epistemology of feminism is important for its effectiveness to be realized. A collective effort from various scholars is required. But she also writes from a white feminist lens, and these scholars she refers to often exclude African scholars from this pedagogical enterprise. I had to use those big words there so you take me serious. As scholars who are faced with the task of analyzing the ever-changing dynamics of the world, continent, and country, and since I have an interest in decolonial feminist work, I've asked many critical questions around how I can then continue to explore my journey and that of others to define my own feminism. And although prominent work has been done by feminist scholars over the last 3 decades within the discipline, I have to consciously find ways in order to locate my experience within my field, through looking at case studies that are central to Africa in relating how women have been involved in politics, in rioting, in resistance, that have had an impact on the state, foreign policy, or the state's relation with the international community. So it is with deliberate action that I continue to take decisions on how I write and disseminate knowledge. Miriam Tladi in Remove the Chains, South African Censorship, and the Black Writer writes. So this was when I was invoking the spirit of, as we know that she left us this year, right? And many people did not know of her. To the Philistines, the banners of books, the critics, we Black South African writers who are faced with the task of conscientizing our people and ourselves are writing for those whom we know are the relevant audience. We are not going to write in order to qualify into your definition of what you describe as true art. Our main objective is not to receive ballyhoo comments on our work. What is more important is that we should be allowed to reach our audience. Our duty is to write for our people and about them, close quote. This is the text that continues to affirm my decision in challenging how we write about ourselves in our respective disciplines. It is one I used when I wrote Misbehave. I had to ask myself, who am I writing for? Who is my audience? My audience then became the Malebo who was in her early 20s, grappling with the question of perpetuating patriarchy in the way she was socialized and what feminism meant. Feminism in that context meant angry, bra-burner, man-hater, bitter woman. Locating theory into practice, I had to employ certain strategies, such as not using the word feminism in the chapters of the book until the last chapter, as a way to mitigate the resistance to the labeling itself, as a way to address the question if Africans can be feminists, as a way to locate the different experiences within theory with the risk of being self-indulgent. Last night at Gola's launch, Reflecting Rogue, a man stood up to comment on the launch saying that we do not have any voices of feminism. We do not have any feminist voices on this continent, and that women do not work together. Gola passionately responded that there has been a lot of feminist work done on this continent. How dare he? Even way to a point when women would not necessarily label themselves as feminists. So the issue here is to deliberately go out in search of this work. Gola continues to teach that we need to deliberately cite these works in our discipline, to talk about, to prescribe, to invoke the works of African scholars. When I wrote the last chapter titled My Feminism, it allowed me to reflect on a journey of how I have feministed throughout my life, even at a time I would not label myself as a feminist. I'm going to read a little bit of what I've written in my book. With my last chapter on my feminism, the entire book does not contain the word feminism because I wanted my audience to be able to locate what feminism looks like in experience. Not just talking about theory, but actually locating the very same theory in experience. And I found that storytelling is a very powerful way. And when you use storytelling and you back it up with stats and facts and theory, it becomes powerful. I'm going to read excerpts and not in order. I first encountered the word feminism from some of my high school teachers. I did not pay much attention to it and thought it referred to someone who was feminine, those women who were delicate and loved the color pink. When I was 19, a pastor talked about it in his sermon. He said feminism was a curse on the family structure, and as a result of it, homes were dysfunctional. Divorce rates were high and wives lacked submission. He added that feminists wanted to take the place of men and rule the world. He said feminists were angry, deeply hurt women who could not forgive. It was so popular to denounce feminism in my circle, and so I rejected it, based on the way it was portrayed. On and on and on and on and on. After she left, I said softly to myself, I am a feminist. I was still not entirely sure what it meant, but liked how it was explained to me. I tucked it away in my heart only for my indulgence. I wanted to publicly embrace this concept, but I knew how problematic it would be considering those I hung around with. I was not angry. I did not hate men. And I made sure that no matter what, men would not find out that I actually liked being called a feminist. I encountered the term again when working in corporate. Gender equality was a hot topic, and the underrepresentation of women bothered me. In the corporate environment, the language revolved around women ascending to the top, breaking glass ceilings, and paving the way for those to come. The company claimed progressive labor policies. What they actually did, however, was employ more black people in junior positions and promote white women. I was naive and my politics immature, but one thing my corporate experience did for me was give me the confidence to be vocal about my feminism. He said he did not quite believe in the concept, but if more feminists were like me, then he fully supported it. I was getting seeped into the feminist lane and started learning a few things. Desperate to learn more about this feminism, I read everything I could on it. I found texts by black feminist writers from the United States, Bell Hooks, Toni Morrison, Audre Lorde, Maya Angelou, Alice Walker, and Patricia Hill Collins. After reading them, I could never read the type of self-help books I was reading ever again. These feminist texts proved essential in the evolution of my thinking. Reading them helped me to understand that you cannot address the liberation of black women without considering their historical backgrounds. This literature exposed the fact that my feminism had been rooted in white feminism, which argued that the fight was merely about equality. I'm just giving you snippets so you can go buy the book. It also taught me about intersectionality, so I go on about that. With time, the concept of intersectionality came to explore the multi-layered quality of the oppression black women faced. The different forms of oppression along the lines of gender, sexuality, race, ability, ethnicity, and class are not only interrelated but locked together. One of the things intersectionality seeks to do is to break the lens through which society is seen to be represented by a white middle-class cisgender when a person's personal identity correlates with the biological sex they were born with, heterosexual, able-bodied. When we try to divorce struggles from each other, we dismiss the issues faced by those who are different from us. This literature also showed how my feminism defended patriarchy. In my work with black men, I made excuses for them, using gender norms to explain away their behavior. They needed to acknowledge the harmfulness of patriarchy, reject and fight it too. Protecting patriarchy did not help anyone. Instead, it broke me. Every day I would hear about the injustices women faced at the hands of men. The fact that men believed they owned our bodies because we were subordinate to them aggrieved me. Even those I worked with saw themselves as superior to me. I'm almost done. Although I appreciated the foundation laid by the black feminist scholars and writers from the US, I was missing something. There were many things I related to, but I still longed for a local context for my feminism. I had a chat with someone about my search, and they expressed concern over the lack of black South African women's stories. They lamented the erasure of black women and the untold memories. They gave me the impression that no such literature existed, but I was committed to locating myself within black South African women's writing, and I found more than I bargained for in my searches. There are feminists who have been writing for decades, some whose material is not readily available at leading bookstores. And then I go on and on and on and on about my journey, which you should buy the book and read. I was astonished by all these treasures I discovered. I grew up reading a lot, but realized that what you choose to read matters because the West has had a huge influence on what we consume. I had to be intentional about the material I sought out. I live in a time where we bask in the works of Professor Pumla Dinelgola, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, Lebohang Peko, Dr. Tlaleng Mufokeng, Sisonke Msimang, Tabiso Matlapo, Zamandlovu Ndlovu, Natalia Molebatsi, Simpiwe Dana, Vangile Gancho, Pindile Sithole Spong, Zamantunga Kumalo, Panashe Chigumadze, Simamkele Tlagavo, Sipotukele Elaine Katlego, Maneo Mohale, Dr. Kopano Matla, Slindile Mutembu, and Ponso Pilani. Really, there are too many to mention here. I have written this book from experiences that define my complex journey with feminism, not from a theoretical perspective. Each chapter is about navigating life as a black woman and all the encounters that led me to espouse feminist ideals. Feminism in Africa continues to be attacked on the basis that it is divisive. We are told not to forget that we are black first and women second. Some say feminism is un-African. Well, I have watched women around me and have realized that my great-grandmother, grandmother, and mother and neighbors could easily be called feminists. I've heard from women around the continent who live feminist ideals, even if they do not call themselves feminist. I generally struggle with labels, but I acknowledge the importance of owning the word feminism. In Ghana 2006, the African Feminist Forum produced the Charter of Feminist Principles for African Feminists, which had this to say about naming yourself as a feminist. And then I quote, and then I end the book with, I express my feminism as an African. I know that my fight on this continent is a fight against patriarchy, poverty, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, FGM, rape, HIV/AIDS, human and food insecurity, displacement, conflicts, and the many atrocities we continue to face. I fight with hope for total liberation, and I know that with this identity, labeling myself as an African feminist, it is not to say that there is a sisterhood that represents and speaks on behalf of all of us. We are not homogeneous, but we are connected. I'm flawed and not perfect, and get the theory incorrect because I'm still unlearning internalized oppression. I still struggle with deep-seated beliefs about gender norms and have to constantly check myself. I don't get it right all the time, but I'm walking in the right direction. I used to be hard on myself because I desperately wanted my feminism to be accepted by other feminists. This is when I learned the importance of the different threads that run through different strands of feminism. Sometimes I don't feminist up to the standard of others, but I continue to identify as an African feminist. It is important that we offer critique among one another, though, so we may continually check our blind spots. I want to live in a society where we are all liberated. This is what my feminism looks like. I am an African feminist. Thank you.